Hi, how's it going? I'm Marlene. Thanks for wandering by. So now I'm back for reason number 4 why I tarot. And reason number 4 is because poetry. I alluded to this before, or maybe didn't even allude to it. I kind of said it outright that I'm a poet, and I love poetry. I love writing poetry. I love reading poetry, and I really feel like the tarot and poetry are interconnected. It's like they're sisters. I really feel like poetry and tarot have a lot in common, in that poetry is a mystery and a riddle to solve. I think poetry and tarot can both get a bad rap for being something that's like too difficult or enigmatic to figure out. And I don't think so. I think that poetry, just like the tarot, is for everyone. It's for anyone. And it's just like unlocking that secret for me, unlocking the mystery, diving into the cards, diving into a poem to unravel the message, unravel the theme, figure out what's going on here is something that I just absolutely adore doing. And so today I wanted to share with you some of the different ways that I've found as I've been working with tarot, how these two are connected. And today we're going to walk through kind of using not my original work, or talk about like writing poetry, but more about the poetry that's found within the cards. I use a journal. I tarot and I record my readings in a journal. I journal anyway, like aside from the tarot. So I've been consistently keeping a journal alongside my tarot writings for quite some time, and I'd love to, if anybody is interested, in another video, or maybe even a series, I'd be happy to like talk about tarot and creative writing, not just poetry, but using the tarot for different kinds of writing exercises and different kinds of writing in general. So narratives, poetry, anything, character building, world building, things like that. But today what I wanted to do is I just wanted to talk about how poetry comes alive and in the tarot for me, and how I've worked with and found different decks that have connections to poetry, and also how I use poetry books or anthologies, or different books of poetry as part of a tarot reading as well. And kind of like in an oracle way. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about what I think of poetry. And I've got a couple quotes from Billy Collins. So one of them is poetry is the history of the human heart. I think that's not even his quote. I think he was quoting someone else. But I think of it that way too. And I think of tarot in the same way, more like the story of, the human history is inside the tarot, and poetry, the language of poetry, is the history of the human heart. And something else that he said too, Billy Collins, a poet that I really enjoy, is poetry is the diary without the lock. It's the diary you want people to read. So it's just such a cool thing for me, that these two like passions of mine come together. And so there are some decks out there, and I have a couple of them that have poetry written directly in the guidebook. So this is the Tarot of the She, and it's a Fae deck. it's just gorgeous. I'll show you some cards too, and then I'll go into the guidebook a little bit. But these are the backs, and so here are some of the cards. It is really pretty, but in this deck, all of the excerpts in the guidebook for all of the minor cards are poems. So let's grab one, and then, so this is, let's see, this is a major. So Dancer 5. So Dancer 5, where loss resides. So this would be the 5 of Cups. Yes, the 5 of Cups. So Dancers are cups in, let me just make sure. Yeah, Dancers is water. So that's the 5 of Cups. So I'm going to read you the poem that's in here. So Dancer 5. Let's hold up the card while I read it to you. And the key word here is where loss resides. So, one day, all may seem too late. The ship has sailed on the sea of fate, and Dancer holds a wilting rose, not seeing where the other grows. So those are just pairs of rhyming couplets for each of them. So let me grab another one from here to read for you. So we've got, okay, here we go. Maker 4. So Maker 4 is the greedy tree. So this would be the 4 of Pentacles or the 4 of coins. When one great tree keeps all the light and rain to feed its greedy might, then no new life may grow around, leaving sad and empty ground. Isn't that just so cool? I mean, it just that poem just completely embodies the image. It embodies the meaning of the card. And I mean, it's a fun, rhyming poem too, which isn't always my favorite, but I really enjoy it here. Let's see. Then we also have, I can do Dreamer 10. So, ooh, Desolation. So this Dreamers is the air suit. So this would be the 10 of Swords, if you're not familiar with this deck. So let me find Dreamer, and I'll read this one to you. So, of course, the 10 of Swords is a really tough card, and it's typically in the Waite-Smith Tarot with the 10 swords, through the back of the person lying on the ground. So let's read this poem. So all must bleed and melt away before the dawning of the day. The tree must fall in, land forlorn. The dream must die to be reborn. So yeah, that's amazing. It's just perfect. Like, those are perfect poems for these cards. So that was the Tarot of the She, and all of the minor cards have a short poem in the guidebook. So it's just a really lovely way to interpret your cards and to just add more to your reading. I also have a deck that I'm like absolutely in love with and obsessed with, and that's the Margaret Peterson Tarot. And in this deck, it's all a lot of really abstract art, and you can just really dive into the paintings and get into your readings there. But on top of that, like this guidebook, and eventually I'll do the 10 my top 10 guidebooks. I mean, I think this might be, spoiler alert, number 1. But it is, even though it's tiny, it is mighty. It is just amazing. And all of the majors in this deck have a poem in the guidebook. So whereas the Tarot of the She has a poem for all the minors in the Margaret Peterson Tarot, it's just it's a completely different, it's a completely different type of energy and everything in this deck. But the major cards have a poem that goes along with it. So I'll show you some of the different majors. So the High Priestess and the World, Renewal. I mean, as if these, for me anyway, these paintings aren't gorgeous enough and give you so much abstract color and shapes and associations to work with, and just, mystery to unravel. It also gives you a poem. So let's take this one. So this is the Crone. So this is the Hermit card, and this deck is called the Crone. So the Crone, aging as a spiritual journey, the soul listening inward through the ear labyrinth, listening to the voice of the human heart, place of knowledge and wisdom, the old traveler on her way to the point of oneness, where she touches the cosmic whole, wingless flying straight into the heart. Every step is perfect. Also, like on top of the image, on top of what you know about the Hermit, and just putting together, I mean, so the Crone as the Hermit is an amazing thing, like aging as a spiritual journey. Listening inward through the ear labyrinth. I mean, I just love this, thinking of that journey inwards and where you go, and what you can learn. And, coming to a place of stillness, of oneness, the ability, like it says here in the poem, to touch the cosmic whole. Yeah, so it just feels like it's the description of like this journey inwards and then this journey outwards. So it's really like those two things happening at the same time as you learn more, like as you age, literally or figuratively with your own wisdom, and then just like coming into a place of understanding within, and then kind of with that understanding of within, that's how you fly winglessly, how you are able to touch what's outside of you, completely outside of your own realm and understanding. And and then the last line, every step is perfect. Like that's, there's no wrong way to learn, to go within, to to learn on your own, personal journey. I just think that's beautiful, and I absolutely adore this deck. We can do another one. Let's read the death card. So this is what it looks like. Here's the death card. I absolutely love it. Again, that idea of transcendence is definitely present in a lot of these cards, and you can feel that for sure throughout the abstract artwork. But so let's read the poem for death. Entering the formless, changing of clothes, flaming like a sunset, travel on the path to nowhere. Wisdom of the serpent, the thread cut, no longer separated, we expand. Stepping out of oneself, death, old crone, with your flaming cloak, you take what needs to be transformed. Well, there's definitely that feeling of transformation, and travel, and that idea, it's the same, like it's a very similar idea that I find in the other poem of like the movement inwards and expanding outwards. But this really seems like it is a like an expansion with a guide, which is funny because I just read The Hermit. Isn't that interesting? So, but you know, with the image as well, it really feels like there's a, like you have a, like a hand, you know, a guide to take you along your next movement and transformation. So beautiful. I just absolutely love it. I could spend so much time analyzing these poems, and you know, that's what I love to do and I want to do. So yeah, that was the Margaret Peterson Tarot that has a poem for each of the major cards. So both with the Tarot of the She and in the Margaret Peterson Tarot, you have poems written expressly for one of the cards. And I have another deck that that's recently purchased that I did a walkthrough of. I can link it below. And this is the Abyssal Tarot, and it's all of the images are underwater photography. And you can watch me lose my breath as I walked through this deck, because it was just like, it was so intense and so overwhelming and so much that like I literally had trouble breathing through my walkthrough of the deck. But something amazing about this particular deck is that it has these words alongside the card. So you can see this is the 10 of Wands, and it's just this beautiful underwater photography. And it has these, I'll get a little bit closer to the camera so you can see. It has these words along the side, and I don't know, I mean, there's no explanation in the guidebook what these are about, and they're random and or poignant, and they're bizarre. Sometimes they seem like it might be like what the photographer, the artist, named that photo itself. Like before it was, you know, the 10 of Wands, it was, you know, these words. But I did something cool that came up as I was looking through it, is that I was thinking, you know, it would be amazing to, in a reading, put these words together into a poem. And so I did just that with one of my readings. And I'll show you the three that I pulled and read you the poem that comes together when you string these words together. And then maybe we'll try some random pulls and see what happens there. But I did, and this is crazy. I'll share it with you because the question was, what do I truly desire? And so the first card that I pulled is the 10 of Wands. And the word is small exaltations, are the key words. And then I pulled the Queen of Pentacles, and the words there are bathed in light. And lastly, my last card was strength, and the words are pounding of my heart. So all together we have small exaltations, bathed in light, pounding of my heart. So here, I'll put all three together for you. Small exaltations, bathed in light, pounding of my heart. And it's just like, you know, blows my mind to put that together. And then, you know, like I said, I journal when I, you know, record my tarot readings. And so to have those words kind of moving towards each other and coming together to, on top of my reading and my understanding of the cards, It's just a really neat experience, and it just adds more depth and more to play with and more to uncover in your own reading. And if you have time, you know, to play with things like this is just awesome. So maybe I'll just shuffle and draw 3 random cards, and we'll see about a poem that can come together that way. So let's play and try it out. Okay, so we have the Lovers, buttery violins, the Ace of Cups, inverted glass, hiding some of it, and exotic warrior. Buttery violins, inverted glass, exotic warrior. That's cool. Buttery violins, inverted glass, exotic warrior. I just, you know, I love word associations and word association games. And I can go so many different places with like the Lovers, buttery violins. It's like slipping and sliding and music. And, you know, what does that mean for it could have to do with relationships and choices, and like slipping and sliding through melodies, inverted glass, a blessing, but is it, if it's inverted, as everything's spilling? And then making connections between that and the music and the relationship stuff, exotic warrior. These are 2 aces. So Ace of Swords and Ace of Cups. I mean, it's just, you know, like, so on top of thinking about like the truth of the Ace of Swords and the blessing in the Ace of Cups and the choice or commitment of the Lovers card, then you have more kind of random, strange words that can take you to a different locale in your mind and in your heart and in your, spirit as you process, what this means for you, or if you're reading for someone else, what those things can be. And it's almost like just trying to like piece together a puzzle. And I don't know, you guys remember magnetic poetry on the refrigerator was like a huge thing. Here, I'm just gonna grab a couple random ones again. So we've got memories of time, wish to tell, gold dress. So, I mean, how cool is that? Yeah, so I just think that kind of stuff is like really cool. I mean, maybe it's just me. You tell me if you're a dork like me and you like to play with words and see, what kind of stuff that you can come up with, and what stands out to you, and what, resonates for you, and what like makes you think more, and just piecing that kind of thing together. So I also thought it would be really cool to then use another deck that has not poetry in the guidebook, but very descriptive narrative in the guidebook. And so you can, and I did this exercise and I pre-planned this for you so that you could see things come together. And if you're a dork, a poetry dork nerd like me, then you might like to try something like this yourself with putting other people's words together and stringing it together alongside your own tarot reading for fun. For fun, for depth, for whatever it is that you want it to be. So this deck is the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. And so this is the guidebook. And each of the cards, all of them, so minors, majors, court cards, every single card has a narrative, an excerpt that's like a narrative. It's a story of that describes what's happening inside the card. So this deck is beautiful, and it's often described as like the deck of portraits, because all of the images are very, very tight and up close. But there's definitely, the symbolism in there. It's another Fae deck, fairy deck. And so I just love it. It's beautiful. I've loved working with this deck. I've loved working with all of these. And so I just thought it would be cool to pull to pull some cards and then look into the guidebook and kind of piecemeal, like grab some of the most standout lines from those very descriptive narratives and string them together into a little bit of a poem that can kind of help you understand or enhance. I say that word a lot, enhance, enrich, just give you more when you're reading tarot. So I have a couple of examples for you. So here we have the Ace of Cups. I just love that. It's an otter, right? That's an otter. Oh, cute. The Three of Swords. I really like this image for the Three of Swords. And the Four of Wands. So for this one, I looked into the guidebook and found just lines that stood out to me. And Ace of Cups. So letting the water flow around her, caressing and supporting her. She does not even notice the blood dripping down her hand. In this moment, their hearts alive, burning with beauty and joy. So I can read it all together again. Letting the water flow around her, caressing and supporting her. She does not even notice the blood dripping down her hand. In this moment, their hearts alive, burning with beauty and joy. So I could just, I could just see, I can just pull together those meanings of the cards into a poem that's even sounds kind of like a narrative poem here. There's definitely the story, right, throughout these three cards. And it just, if you journal and you're writing, just your own speak and writing, your interpretation and how this relates to whatever it is that your question was and what's going on in your life, or whatever it is that you're reading on, and then you just have these beautiful words. You can go in there and you can put these things together, and then you have like a story for yourself of the movement and the progression of your own your own reading. Here's another one that I pre-pulled and I went into the guidebook and I just pulled out these key phrases that just stood out to me as my interpretation of the meaning of the card, and then how they flow with one another. So here we have the Nine of Swords. She has forgotten what it feels like to be still. The Star. Reconnect with your inner sparkle. And this is the Knight of Pentacles. All things happen when they should. So I'll read it together for you. I like this one came out. It's pretty cool, huh? She has forgotten what it feels like to be still. Reconnect with your inner sparkle. All things happen when they should. Isn't that just like freaking cool? Like, it's just amazing. Like when when you can use the cards, when you can tie in poetry, it just like, it's just too much for me. I can't take it. I love it so much. That is reason number 4 for me why I tarot, because poetry. And I can find the poetry in tarot. I literally, purchased decks that I knew had poetry written for the descriptions of the meanings of the cards themselves, like the Tarot of the She and the Margaret Peterson Tarot. And then we have decks that are kind of strange and outliers, like the Abyssal Tarot that has those words, on the side that like I immediately saw poetry right then and there. And then you can take, I'm sure there's others like here's the box for the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. I know there's other decks that the guidebook definitely has more descriptive narrative type writing in it, but you can even pull gems out of any single guidebook. And I will probably do that myself, and I would encourage you, if this seems like something that's cool to you, I encourage you to try that exercise, because it's just neat to do something else on top of your tarot reading. Yeah, and then, I forgot to mention, but you can certainly use any type of poetry alongside your reading. So often I'll do a couple different things, either at the beginning or at the end of a tarot reading, usually at the end, like once I've, and not when I've done like a practice like this where I've already used poetry. So I'll just have my tarot reading. And then at the end, I will go ahead and grab one of my poetry books. I have anthologies usually, so different poets in there, and I'll just, like bibliomancy, and I'll just flip open to a random page and read that poem, and that is my, it's my oracle really for that poetry reading, or I'm sorry, for that tarot reading. It'll be the final statement that'll add more to my reading. So yeah, it's just super fun for me, and meaningful to incorporate poetry into my tarot readings. And like I said, this was about using found poetry that's written by someone else. I certainly write my own, and I would love to share that with you in some way, and show you how I use the tarot for my own creative writing as well. And if you're interested, in seeing something like that too, please let me know. If you thought this was cool, please let me know. It's cool to me. I'm not sure if it's cool to anybody else, but yeah, so this was reason number 4 why I tarot, because poetry. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. And I hope you all have a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye.